Chavrusa Daf.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Lamed Pei.
La 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 la.
That is the Zichru.
By the way, the lad was ladder.
Ladder. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Okay, Amar. So we're about to repeat a little bit what we said yesterday. So it's Chazar. It'll help us get back into it.
Okay.
And it's also not too hard. Amar. Imah prat first pre gamor. Once you can't we should reason instead, just as the specification is specifically a finished fruit of the grapevine, of kol pre gamor. And we said that it shouldn't be the fruit and the waste of the fruit. It should be a finished fruit. But no. Then Amarta, you would respond, what did the Torah leave for you to include in its meaning that it didn't already say explicitly? Adav Malachim Yiveshim. You didn't tell me, fresh and dried grapes. No, Ksivi. It's written clearly in the pasuk. Yain of it's wine and vinegar. Ksivi. It's also written explicitly in the pasuk. For this reason, we say that the specification that we're learning is going to have to be fruit and not finished.
Remind
fruit.
me again. Why would I respond if it's talking about finished fruit and finished fruit? Why would
you
I?
have nothing left to learn out. There's nothing additional that this specification can come to include in the prohibition. There's nothing else that this can include for Naziris because the Torah said all of the cases of finished fruit. So what are you going to learn it out to?
Exactly. No.
Meaning fresh and dry grapes are finished fruits.
Yes.
Okay.
And the Yain of it's part of the finished fruit. So what else are you going to include? Alma, it has to be that it's just fruit,
Right,
and therefore you can include the wormy fruits, the immature fruities. Mm-hmm. Okay. And now we're about to explain why it's a prat klal prat and not just klal prat.
Not just prat klal.
And not just prat. Yes. Okay. Once now we're including anything that resembles the specification. Why does the Torah say this? The last prat of mechatzanim yadzag, from seed to skin. To teach you wherever you have a specification after the generalization. So, and if it only would have had pratokal, not the second prat, just had pratokal, you wouldn't extend it and expand to include things similar to the specification. Generalization becomes added to the specification, and everything would be included, all the generalizations, and therefore you would aser even the grapevine. But until the Torah comes and says, so then it specifies again, it has the second prat, to say, and it finishes the prat klal prat sequence to tell you, and it limits the application of the law to those cases that are similar to the specification. We already said this all. Let it settle as you read it.
So the reason we have a closing specification is to teach you that you may not extend it and expound it to include only things similar to the specification. Rather, I don't know what that means. You may not extend it and expound it to include things only similar to the specification. Rather, the generalization becomes added to the specification. Until the pasuk specifies for you again in the way it specifies for you in the case of the Nazir by stating from the skin to the skin. These words represent the closing specification that completes the specification and limits application of the law to those cases that are similar to this specification. Meaning this prat now narrows down
Exactly.
what the similarities of the generalization are.
Precisely.
Meaning, when you have just a klal of prat, a prat of klal,
It's going to be broader.
it's going to be broader. Here, we need things similar to the seeds, from the seeds to the skin.
And but when you say needs, meaning because it did prat, kal, prat, it now narrowed it to things similar to that, right?
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Nice chazar. Or Belazar ben Azariah. The Kamoikim Lahem Echartzan V'Yadzag.
What did he say in our Mishnah?
Do you remember him?
No.
Remember we had a machlekes. Does it have to be 2 seeds and a skin? Just let's go back. But Belazar ben Azariah said, "Oh, there was the comment says you're chayiv just for wine, just for grapes, and you could also be chayiv just for chatzanim by themselves and zagim by themselves." But Belazar ben Azariah said, "No, you're only chayiv for chatzanim and zagim if you eat 2 grape seeds and a grape skin." He was very specific. It has to be 2 grape seeds and a grape skin.
And the first one said what?
You could be chayiv just by wine, just by grape skins, just by grapes themselves. You don't need grape skins and grape seeds together in order to be chayiv, in order for the Nazir to be chayiv.
Right. And this klal of prat and the...
Like, forget the cloud part.
No, 1 second. This klal of prat and the miyah, that was the machlekes Amoraim? Or
Tanim.
Tanaim. Okay. Go ahead.
Lazar ben Azariah, not to be confused with Rabbi Lazar. Lazar ben Azariah, the Mokim Lahem Echartzan V'Yadzag, who uses the pasuk for something else, right? You use it, Leimar she'ein chayiv ad she'echel beis chatzanim v'zag, to tell you that you're not chayiv unless you eat seeds and skin, 2 seeds and a skin, pratam and ole. How could he learn the prat? He's already using that pasuk to teach him something else. So how does he have the prat called prat? So I'll tell you, Swerdlik Rabbi Lazar. You could say Rabbi Lazar ben Nazir holds like Rabbi Lazar, the Darsh Miyat Bariba, who instead of learning the prat called prat, learns Miyat Bariba. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we needed the mechartzanim v'atzag to teach you things that are similar to that. But he used it already on this idea of eating 2 seeds and skin. So where does he derive that things that are similar to the seeds and the skin, that he in fact holds like Rabbi Lazar of the Brisa, the Darash Miyat V'Rivei.
There was Machayim.
Right.
Rabbi Lazar.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just say, oh, very good. He doesn't need that extra prop because he's going to hold the Reba of Amir. All Jews are related. It's like
And remind me, Rabbi Lazar expands the pasuk in terms of Reba and Miyat, teaching that even leaves and shoots of the grapevine are forbidden to a Nazir.
Yes.
And only woody branches are permitted.
Yeah.
So according to this, or sometimes the Nazir's passage is employing only a 2-part sequence. The phrase from the seeds to the skin is not needed in the sequence, and is hence available right to read in the miyat. So it comes along and it comes to teach you that laws of an Azariah's law that a Nazir is not liable for eating seeds and skin unless he eats at least 2 seeds and the skin. Okay.
So that was one answer. You could say he just holds like Belazar. I think where I say, you know what? You guys say Rabbanan. You could actually say that Belazar ben Azariah does agree with the Rabbanan, and therefore he's able to use the seeds and skin to teach both things. The prat called prat, and you can learn that he uses it to teach of 2 seeds and a skin. These stuff that could Belazar ben Azariah. If you're going to tell me, enter your mind that he really holds like Belazar ben Azariah, it could have said the part of that pasuk, it should have said it in the earlier specification list. Remember we said it listed all the specifications, then it said a klal, and then this last specification. What was the purpose that it felt to do it separately after the klal? So it had the bunch of lists of the pratim and the klal, then this Shema minal medaine beklal prat. You could learn from here, the fact that it's separated and put it after the klal. You could learn both things, right? So you could learn it for the prat klal prat, and you could learn it for this that he holds it. You need two seeds and
Learn that the fact that it should really have put it earlier on, and I would learn what,
and therefore, you would still know. Meaning, if all Rebbe Elazar wanted to do with this pasuk was teach that you need two seeds in a skin, he could have known that if it was in the first part of the pasuk.
but then I wouldn't have had the klal prat of klal.
You're right.
The prat klal
So the very fact that the Torah, meaning how he wants to show that you can learn both things.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you why you can learn both things, because if all I wanted to learn was that you need two seeds and a skin, it should have done in the beginning of the pasuk. The very fact that it does it at the end of the pasuk after the klal allows me to learn one more thing.
Right, because if it was just seeds and skin, I would include it earlier.
Yeah.
The fact that I put it later on shows I can learn two things. But say that this phrase comes entirely for this, entirely for the klal prat of klal.
Yeah.
And you can't learn anything more than that.
Okay.
I mean, okay.
Gemara is just asking it, even though we just gave a pretty good answer, but okay, it's asking it again.
No. It's entirely for this sequence. It's not coming to teach us anything.
Okay,
extra.
fine. You're right. Fine. So, Imkain, it was only meant for a praklal pra, lichtov oishnei chartsanim oishnei zugim. It could have said two seeds and two skins, or meaning both plural. Right? What did the pasuk say? Mechartsanim yadzog. From seeds to skin.
Okay.
Plural to singular.
Echartzan
Mechartzan v'zog. Why is it one plural, one singular? Shema mina l'midrash beklal prat, to teach you the praklal prat. Yikanami l'midrash be'ashef l'shnei chatzanim v'zog. And additionally, you could teach the halacha of two seeds in the skin.
So why, according to Rebbe Elazar, does it have?
Rebbe Elazar, yeah. Oh.
No, why, according to Rebbe Elazar, who learned it out from Mia and Reba, why does it have a difference of singular and plural? Okay, but also remind me the person who learns out the Mia and Reba.
Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. Sorry, no.
Rebbe Elazar. Why does it say? Why does it say it at the end? The seeds on the skin?
We don't know yet. And not only that, there was a footnote we didn't do.
Yeah.
That basically was like, hold on, you tell me Reba Mia, but what's that third part? Very good question. According to Rebbe Elazar, there's three parts of the pasuk, but he's only saying Reba and Mia. It sounds like there's Mia, Reba, and another Mia. So what do you do? I understand when you say prat, klal, prat.
Yeah.
We don't know. I can show you where that.
I just want an answer.
You thought of an answer?
No, I just want an answer. Meaning, to product.
Note that Rebbe Elazar has not used a three-part sequence, but merely a two-part sequence consisting of a limitation followed by amplification. He does not expand the Torah's concluding limitation, seeds and skin, as representing a third part of the sequence, since he uses seeds and skin to teach Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah's rule that Nazir is not liable for a separate consumption of skins or seeds, but only for the consumption of a combination of the two. So, I guess we're going to end up saying that it's because Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah holds like Rebbe Elazar. That Rebbe Elazar holds like Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, that it's needed to teach something else.
Okay.
Meaning, right, now you have a good answer as to why he doesn't do anything with that third part, because he's basically going to say it's already in use for something.
For what?
It's in use to tell you that you need two seeds and a skin. Our Gemara is telling us why it could be like the Rabbanim. Right? But we just gave a reason how you could even learn Rabbi Lazar ben Nazir could even be like the Rabbanon.
So the Gemara has a question now. Rabbi Lazar the Darish meet the Rebbe, and Rabbi Lazar who expands this pasuk according to the assumption that the pasuk has meet and Rebbe, Prat klal prat minala. Where does he derive the Torah's use for prat klal prat sequence? Meaning, the Rabbanan who learned prat klal prat, this is their actual source for prat klal prat.
So I
didn't realize that this was
no.
like the
So
case.
I think Manole, and I see that's what the note 9 is trying to tell us. Manole, you're right, usually means that, like where you learn out something. Prat klal prat. It's not easy. Here, something to apparently explain the Gemara to be asking simply whether do we find Rabbi Lazar ever interpreting a scriptural passage according to klal prat klal. I get it that here he wants to say riba miyat. The question of this Gemara is now Rabbi Lazar who's learning miyat b'riba, pral klat uprat manole. Does he ever say
Like
prat?
here's a classic case of prat klal prat. He's not using it, so does he ever learn things
Right.
with that sequence?
Right.
Like it's a lot easier to find the case of miyat harbe and miyat, miyat and riboy. I would imagine. Now you have a case of prat klal prat. It's a layup. Use it.
Yeah. Should we continue that? No.
If you'd like to.
However, the re-explains that the Gemara deduced from Rabbi Lazar's position in regard to Nazir that he must subscribe elsewhere to the prat klal prat method. The deduction runs as follows. As the Gemara has shown, the Nazir passage actually contains a 3-part sequence, with the phrase from the seeds to the skin forming the closing specification of the sequence. Why then does Rabbi Lazar not expand this closing phrase as part of the sequence? Even if he must use this phrase to teach Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah's law, right, of 2 seeds in the skin, it need not be used exclusively for that law as the Gemara has just shown. Right? How it could be like the Rabbah. The reason for Elazar's removal of the final clause from the sequence must result from the fact that he concedes the methodology of
Concedes.
Oh, good one. That is, although for virtually all combinations of general and particular statements he subscribes to the implication limitation system, he normally will say riba miyat for expanding the verses. He had a tradition that when the combination takes the specific form of a particular, followed by generality, followed by another particular, we are to view the sequence as a prat klal prat rather than a miyat riba miyat. Accordingly, expanding the Nazir passage of Elazar was confronted with 2 possibilities, with it each with its own drawback. He could preserve the concluding phrase as part of the sequence, obviously preferable to dropping it, but that would necessitate expounding the passage as a prat klal prat, since he agrees that this is the only correct methodology in the case of prat klal prat sequence, where you could drop the concluding phrase from the sequence, using it exclusively to teach what was Mordecai's law, and thereby free to expound the passage according to his usual method, riba and miyat. Faced with this choice, Rabbi Lazar considers it preferable to preserve the Torah's usual method of expanding riba and miyat in his view, although this necessitates dropping closing particular from the sequence by assigning other purpose. Accordingly, the Gemara's present question is, where are the verses describing prat klal prat regarding which Rabbi Lazar received the tradition to expound in terms of prat klal prat? So where would Rabbi Lazar? So I think it's kind of like you originally said. Like we must be learning. This must be one of the the quintessential cases of prat klal prat. And if Rabbi Lazar isn't learning it from here, and we know that he does learn it elsewhere, then where does he have a quintessential case of prat klal prat?
Okay.
Go for it.
Rabbi Bo says he derives it from the following pasuk. V'chi If a person gives his fellow a donkey or an ox or a sheep, here the Torah has specified. The pasuk continues or any animal. Here the Torah has generalized. The pasuk then concludes its list with the expression Lishmor chazaru forat, to watch. The Torah has again specified.
Well, what's the specification?
The words or any animal denotes all animals, even wild animals such as bears and lions. The next expression to watch is considered specification since it tends to limit the law to those items that can be guarded. The classification does not cover wild bears and lions. Pratu klalu prat. This forms a specification followed by generalization, followed by a second specification. Yetadan elake prat, in which case you cannot derive anything other than what is similar to the specification. Rava suggests a different source. Rebbe loves to yourself suggest specification, generalization, specification. He derives it from the following pasuk in Vayikra. The imin parat, and if from here the Torah has specified, the Torah could have written.
What's the pasuk? Hold on. What's
The pasuk says, and if from the flock is his offering, whether from sheep or from goats, for an olah, he shall offer an unblemished male. And if from the flock of his offering, if from, the Torah has specified, the Torah could have written bin soin karbonai, leaving out the restricted word min, from. The inclusion of this restricted word is taken to represent an opening specification. So it could have said, if the im soin karbonai, it said the im min ha soin. So from is an act of taking from, that's specificity. Hatsoin klal. Then the Torah says the flock. Here the Torah has generalized. The pasuk concludes kivasim beizim chazar ufarat. Sheeps or goats, the Torah has again specified. Pratu klal uprat. This forms a specification followed by a generalization followed by a second specification. Yatadan elakena prat, in which case you cannot derive anything other than what is similar to the specification. So Rava says, okay, that's where Rabbi Lazar learns prat klalu prat yabababababam.
I don't love this one, but
because it's not your classic specificity and in the actual example, but the word min comes to teach you it's actually deeper than we thought, that you don't have to be extremely elaborate in your specificity, but even if you have a small word that references some level of specificity, we can learn from that. That's what it comes to teach you, that even in Hashem's eyes, you look at a small mitzvah and you don't bring it the value of other mitzvahs. You can look at that small mitzvah and say Hashem appreciates it the same way He appreciates min as a level of specificity.
Okay.
Hashem appreciates your so-called little mitzvah. Binyomin, in the case of the little mitzvah, the acoustics in this place are pretty good, probably. I'm like Shabbos, no? Was it built with that intent? The Mordechai Shapiro Auditorium. Okay, the Gemara presents an apparently early occurrence of specification, generalization, specification. I think I'm going to name my next kid specification, generalization, specification. In English. Sequence. Seemingly overlooked by Rava. Amar le Rav Yehuda midis arkta le Rava. Do you think they did Nigunim back in the day and just got lost? No. Okay.
Maybe.
Rav Yehuda of Diskarta said to Rava, not to be confused of Rava of Barnish.
Yeah. Shout out to Rava and Barnish.
Rava Barnish in the house.
He just killed Nathan's ears.
I don't care. We're not doing this for you, Nathan. We're doing this for us. So you have to put up with us, bro. No one's listening to this anyway. We need listeners. Review the discarded said to Rav, Leilach min hadinkra, learn rather from this earlier pasuk. Min, which pasuk? 17. An earlier pasuk in the context of all offering states, Adam ki yaakov mikem karban laHashem min habehim min habakar min hatzorin takriu es korbanchem.
When any person of you brings an offering to Hashem from animals, from the cattle, from the flock, shall he bring your offerings?
I speak like this all the time. When any person of you brings an offering to Hashem, okay, that's specificity, from animals, from the cattle and from the flock, general, shall bring your offerings. This now shows this represents a plow, from, here the Torah is specified. The Torah continues, habehema kolal, the animals is the klal. See how it says kolal? You would have been like, it's klal. But like there's grammar to the flow of words. When you generalize in the past tense, it's kolal. Yichat?
Generalized kalal.
Kalal. Isn't that interesting? The pasuk then concludes, bakar v'tzoin, includes, haha, good one, Ellie, because that's specificity. Bakar v'tzoin chazar fart, cattle and flock. The Torah is again specified. Okay, because it says animals. Prat u'klal prat. Iatadan elakena prat. In which case, you cannot derive anything other than when it's similar to the thing. So we're at reviewed of it.
Here's another case.
This isn't earlier. This is Leviticus 1:2, and Rava was a pasuk 1:10. Why did he skip over 1:2 and went to 1:10? Rava, not from Barnesh, said to Rabbi Yehuda, yes, from Diskarta. Min hai lekel mashmina. From this pasuk, it cannot be learned. For if one were to seek to derive a Lez's source from there, havamina habahema, I could say in response concerning the word animals, which was the klal. The klal chayot bichlol behema. Wild animals are included in the term animals. The term behema, animals, includes wild animals. Thus, it is as if the Torah written from domestic species and from wild species. Accordingly, the opening specification from animals could rule out certain wild animals or certain domestic animals, but cannot rule out all wild animals, since the term animals includes wild animals as well. What? What is this saying? I don't understand.
Basically.
Rava's answer. Why is this not a case of Prat u'klal Prat, Rebbe?
Exactly.
Because the animals was the klal, right?
That was the klal.
Yeah.
Now it's saying, though, that the word from is now, which we thought was the prat, it's not as prati as we had originally thought, since the word behema I don't know well enough to explain it. Hold on.
If you don't know well enough to explain it, that means you don't know it. Azoy Zak Reb Yosef Rabinowitz in 11th grade. I think about that all the time.
All the time.
All the time. No. Whenever I don't understand and I go and I'm like trying to explain it to myself out loud, that means you don't know it. Azoy Zak Reb Yosef Rabinowitz in the 28-minute mark of Daf. La la la. What do I say? Well, Binyomin is Oimel B'Torah. We have to remember why we're here. We can't get lost in the Gashmias of this world. It's very easy to get lost in the Gashmias, Rabbi said. But there's a certain level of understanding that we need to have in our daily lives, that this world is just a hallway. This world is temporary. We cannot get distracted by luxury. We only daven for necessity. We daven beged lilboish lechem la'echol. Why do we say beged lilboish, clothing to wear and bread to eat? You're not going to wear your bread and eat your clothing. It comes along. And the answer is given that we only want enough gashmias to eat and enough gashmias to wear. We don't want stacks of clothing. We don't want pantries of food that we're not going to eat. We only have a certain amount of gashmias and ruchnias, and if we use up too much of that container on gashmias, we're not going to have enough for ruchnias. Rabbi say, na 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 na. The term,
I think we use see note 19 and then note 1. So let's just finish. Let's go back to the Gemara. And we'll read from note 19 and continue to see note 1. I think it should make a little bit more sense. I'm literally reading this for the Rav. Lev min hadin kral went from this earlier pasuk. Min prat. Right? The Torah first said min, which was a prat. Habehema klal. Bakar v'tzayin chazer uprat. Prat yetadam el kan prat. Zak 19. The opening specification from animals, right? The pasuk was when any person who brings an offering to Hashem from animals, indicates only some animals, namely domestic species, cattle, sheep, goats, but not wild species like deer. That's a behema. So right now in the Havmi of the Gemara we're saying when it says min ha-behema, it's from animals, only some animals, meaning only domestic, but not wild. The generalization, so for the min, then it says animals, indicates all animals, even wild species. In the Maskana of the Gemara, we're going to say that that's not true. Okay? The generalization of animals indicates all animals, even wild species. So that's why it's a klal. The closing specification, sheep and goats, again limits the application to the domestic species. Thus, we include it as acceptable for sacrifice anything similar to the specification, such as the wild ox. Domestic species was the one that exclude wild species such as deer. Now, the Gemara answers, no. You can't learn from there. The Imehasam Havamina Habehema Chayel Bechal Behema. The Chayel Bechal Behema. No, 1. The term Behema animals includes wild animals. Okay, so now we thought the behema is. Oh, sorry, no, that's the same thing that we learned, right? The word behema is all animals in wild species. So what's the Gemara explaining now? So actually, it's saying the same. From Havamina, behema is including wild animals, and the Maskan is also including wild animals. But what does that mean? Thus, it is as if the Torah had written from domestic species and from wild species, because behema includes.
is that referring to the first prat? When
No,
it says that?
no, it's referring to the klal. The first prat is the min.
Yeah.
Then behema is the klal. Okay, and because we explained why is behema klal, because it includes wild animals.
Right. So the klal is including domestic species and wild
Yes.
species.
Accordingly, the opening specification from animals could rule out certain wild animals or certain domestic animals, because the prat is being specific of the behema. But now we just said the behema
From is restricting.
from is restricting, but the animals was very wide. It could be domestic or wild. So which means that the from could rule out certain wild animals or certain domestic animals or some of both, but it cannot rule out all wild animals, because behema could also refer to wild animals.
And therefore what? If from cannot rule out all wild animals, what's the problem?
Therefore, you can't tell me that the klal prat there teaches you to exclude wild species such as deer if wild species is part of the klal. Prat klal prat.
Yeah.
The klal has in it wild.
Mm-hmm.
So how could you tell me that the prat excludes wild animals if, as part of the generalization, you have wild animals in there?
Isn't that what a prat does? It restricts part.
Part, I think, is the key. And we want to now say to rule out all wild animals as part of this last prat.
Right. You're right. The prat only restricts part of there. Now you're saying that it restricts all of what the klal came to teach.
All,
to include
right, and
partable, whatever.
part
The
exactly.
wild animals part.
Yes, meaning there should still be some kind of wild animal that should be included, and we're restricting all of it.
Okay. Amarle, chai b'chlal behema. Are wild animals really included? I haksip bakar b'tzayin, but is written cattle and flock. Right? The pasuk in 1:2 said from animals, from the cattle and from the flock.
Right.
This lahavale pride of klal. This pasuk indeed opens with what is a specification and a generalization. V'yata down ela be'ena prada, and since it is followed by another specification, you cannot derive anything other than what is similar to the specification. The terms used in the second specification of cattle and flock clearly do not cover wild animals. Similarly, we should interpret the expression "minhabeya" from animals used in the first specification as referring only to domestic species and not wild animals.
Here.
Our definition of the ambiguous term from animals should reflect the context in which the term is used, one in which the Torah specified that domestic species are meant. So don't get caught up in the whole wild animals component, and then you have this question of why is the prat minimizing what the clause trying to include? No, the clause only referred to cattle and flock. The second prat of the second prat just comes to teach you
Something specific and domestic.
and something specific and domestic, and not what?
And not wild animals. Meaning there's no prat in the wild animals.
Okay, whatever that is. And maybe not the wild ox. A domestic species that lives in the wild. Fine. Maybe that could be it. But so learn out prat klal prat from here.
Yep. So this is where you. So basically, Descartes is saying this is where you could have the quintessential case of prat klal prat.
I don't think Robert answers that. He said the reason he went to 110 about the sheep and the goats is because he wasn't comfortable with
Right.
one,
So right. And Robert gave what said why he wasn't comfortable. Descartes explains no.
Explains it.
Don't.
We don't have an answer for Robert, but
But we still go back to our original question. This is where Rabbi Lazar could have the quintessential cases of prat klal prat.
not in an upslug way. This
Not
is
upslug
just
way.
where
That's where he knows
it
it
out,
from,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mara now investigates the rabbi's system of expounding combinations of particular and general statements. So here we go. Umenolong de hachihu. Where do we know this? I mean, where do we find the prototype for construing certain combinations of specifications and generalizations as coming to include everything similar to the specification? For above, the rabbi said this in regard to the prat klal prat. However, the Gemara will now cite as the prototype a case of klal uprat uklal, since both sequences yield virtually identical results. Prat klal prat, klal prat, klal. Moore considers it sufficient to demonstrate one such sequence. The slight difference between the results of the two sequences will be discussed in the Gemara below. So if you're waiting to understand what the difference between a prat klal prat and the klal prat klal, you'll find out soon enough.
Bum, bum, bum.
But for now, we're going to ask, how do we know about A? We're now moving over to klal prat klal. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, I need to quickly is better.
So now, from where do we know?
No, the hachihu.
Okay.
Where do we know all this stuff about klal prat klal? Tanya. V'nasata hakesed b'chol asher tava nafshcha klal. Pasuk in the Barim, Parak Yadalit Pasuk Chavav. Pasuk concerns the law of Ma'aser Sheni, which is the second tithe separated from produce in the first, second, fourth, and fifth years of the Shemitah cycle. This produce is to be eaten in Yerushalayim, redeemed for money, which in turn is brought to Yerushalayim and used to buy food to be in there.
pasuk which describes the foods that one may purchase the Ma'aser Sheni monies says as follows: "Then asata hakesef, and you shall spend the money b'chol asher kav nafshecha, anything that your soul desires." With bakar, with sign, for cattle, for flock, with yayin, shefer, wine, and beer, or whatever, each wine. Chol asher tish'al kol nafshecha, anything that your soul asks of you. Okay? So, says the Gemara, the time of the Sata Kesef Shul Chol Asher Ta'al V'Nefesh Klal. That's a klal. Right? It says,
Which one's the claw?
because it says spend the money in anything
Okay.
you want.
Okay.
Then it says babakar with sign yain v'sheker prat. Right? It's 4 specific things.
Mm-hmm.
And the pasuk ends v'chol asher tish'alcha nafshecha, anything that your soul asks of you. Chazar the klal, the kolal.
Mm-hmm.
Goes back and generalizes this again. Klal prat uklal at adam el kein haprat. You cannot derive anything other than what is similar to the prat. Ma haprat mefoirish pri migdule karka. Just as the specification is specifically foods that are fruit from fruit and nourished from the ground.
What are we talking about? Fruit.
The pasuk said, "Yain v'shecher."
Where? Which pasuk? We're not talking about the Ma'aser Sheni anymore.
We are talking about the Ma'aser. It said bakar v'tzayin,
Yeah.
cattle, flock.
Oh, okay.
Then it said wine and aged wine.
Right.
So wine, saying free, and gdule karka, nourished from the ground.
Okay.
Let's see note 6. These are the common characteristics exhibited by the specifications: cattle, flock, and wine. Fruit from fruit means the foodstuff was in turn produced. Fruit from fruit means that the foodstuff was in turn produced by another foodstuff. This includes plants and animals, because wine came from a grape. Plants and animals which were produced by earlier generations of plants and animals, though they do not actually grow from the ground, right? So we're calling them vidule karka. Cattle and flock are considered nourished from the ground because they feed on plants which grow from the ground. Okay. So I understand why you said hold your horses without saying hold your horses. You said hold that fruit and vidule karka because this is not fruit. So yes, it is produced from something else. In the case of wine, from grapes. In the case of animals, from their parents. They grow from the ground or they're nourished from the ground. So I've called karka. You could anything purchased by Ma'aser Sheni money must be fruit from fruit nourished from the ground.
Such
What is
as?
this? So what does it include?
Right.
It starts to include fowl among the foods that can be bought with Ma'aser Sheni funds, but excludes fish, water, and salt. So you could have chicken,
Which gets its nourishment from the ground.
right, which is similar to the prop that the pasuk said, but not exactly, and it excludes.
Which one is that?
Well, the fact that, because what were the 4 things? It was
Cattle, flock, wine, and aged wine.
yeah. So
Cattle and flock gets nourishment from the ground, so it's anything that
Chicken.
gets its nourishment from the ground, like a chicken, but not a fish, which does not get its nourishment from the ground, or water and salt. Okay.
Milty. Now let's
So hold on.
understand
So
the
that's
mechanics.
where we learn. That's where we learn this idea of klal prat klal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Milty. Klal uprat uklal. Ke'ein prata daininan. The rule is that we derive cases similar to the specification.
Right. That's what we learned from the last.
Klala basra, my honey. What's
Right.
the function of the final generalization? Why would we not achieve the same result without the final
Right. We
generalization?
got our specification in the middle.
You
So
know what?
why?
I think you know what the answer is going to be. Ahani loisufe kol dummy. The final generalization serves to include all cases that are similar to it within the domain of the law. Note 8. The Gemara replies that without the closing generalization, the same result is not achieved. The final generalization is absent, and only a generalization followed by a specification is left, and the rule in that case is that the specification is viewed as defining the scope of the law and limiting it exclusively to the case specified. Klal prat and klal el mashav prat. That is, so what would it be in our case? You wouldn't learn chicken. You would say only cattle, right? That is, the law applies only to the case specified, cannot be extended to other cases by Shermanik means. There's Malmatin Kalheimer, were the specification to appear without any preceding generalization, and the law could be extended to other harmonic means. Thus, the final generalization is needed to expand the scope.
The chicken needs the claw.
Exactly. Chicken needs the final claw. Include all cases similar to specification. Cool. I think like once you learn it well the first time, you understand where you get the what it does. The mechanics.
Yeah.
Okay. Gemara continues to probe. How much can we go into this probing?
Well, the mark ends right there by Rabbi Akiva. By Rabbi Bo. There's
Yeah.
2 dots on the bottom.
Should we get there?
Let's try.
Su prapu klal prat, and furthermore, in the case of a specification followed by a generalization, prat. Okay, so that was klal prat klal, right? I prat klal uprat, which we started with. Ke'ein haprat dainiran. Also, the rule is that we derive case similar to the specification. So pratavasra mayahani. What is the function of the final specification? Why would we not achieve the same result without the final specification? Do you get that? Did I say you looked away for a second?
No, yeah, we have the specification.
Prat, klal, prat.
Prat. So why do we need? I mean, it's hard to ask this question after we show the value.
So
of
let's continue because it's gonna have to know the answer.
Right.
Ilab prat basraf. Now for the final specification, havamina nasa klal moisaval prat. The generalization is made additional to the specification and serves to expand the law to virtually all things that can be covered by the generalization.
That's why you need the last prat to teach you that it's only things that are similar
Yes.
to that prat.
Umesti. Now let us see. Train klali uprato. When we have either 2 generalizations with a specification in between, so klal, prat, klal, utrain prati uklala, or prat, klal, prat, kein prata denira, that's the same thing. We derive only things similar to the specification. My ika beni ubeni. What's the difference between the klal, prat, klal, and a prat, klal, prat? Mark me some difference. Ika. Oh, so there's. I hope this is not too hard.
No.
I'm saying I hope the answer is not going to be too technical because we've been waiting for this question. What's the difference between alpragal and kalpragal?
Right.
Ilu tartain. I like this. Yeah, okay. Ilu tartain klala kala uprata for the case of 2 generalizations with specification in between. Thank you. Sometimes we read it slow. The ilu tartain klala uprata kalprata. Iika prati dedamile afil bechad sad marbinon. If there is a particular case that resembles the specification, even in one way, we include it.
That we have one little prat sandwiched between 2 claws.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have a case that we found some similarity in that specificity in that prat, just in one way, we should include it. But straight party klale, but in the case of prat klal prat iika parte derame mishnate studin mrabnin, if there's a particular case that resembles the specification in 2 ways, we include it. Bechad sad loy marbina, but if it resembles specification in one way, we do not include it. So going back to the case of the chicken, right, where it was, I believe, klal prat klal.
Yep.
In that case, a chicken eats from the ground, similar in one way, we include it.
Okay.
But had it been prat klal prat,
Like our Nazir case, I'm just thinking, right?
yeah, in our Nazir case,
Where it says you could drink, all the things that a Nazir can't have. Grapes, dry grapes,
I was
wine.
going back before that.
Okay.
In the case of the chicken, if it would have been prat klal prat, I would need have had 2 similarities, not just eating from the ground, but also actually being a fruit. I'm just whatever.
Yeah.
You know
yes,
what I mean?
Yes. Okay. So we don't have to go back to the other one. I get this.
Right.
So that's what it is, and it's easy to remember. 2 versus 1. Why? Because it's the prat, klal, prat. That's where you need 2 things. To prat them, two specific things.
Right.
Where it's klal, prat, klal, it's one specific thing because there's only one prat in the middle.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Should we see note 13? No, that's what we just spoke about that already. Okay. Right. Okay. Mifti. Continuing to probe. Prat uklal.
Now let us see. Prat uklal. In cases where there's a prat and then a klal, nasa klal musaf al haprat. The rule is, what we just learned, is that the generalization is made additional to the specification. This rabe kol mili, and virtually all things are included.
Again, this is with
The item,
the final
yeah, the item most remote from the specific statement must be excluded. However, in order to account for the presence of that specific statement, right? We do have a prat. So there's something that's like completely very far away from it is going to be excluded, but the klal comes to teach you pretty much almost everything. Like the woody,
Yeah.
just not an exact case, but yeah. This rabe kol mili. But as we've learned above, if we understand the same sequence according to the view that Torah has riba and miyat, we also arrive at that result that it is amplified to include everything. Bisrabe kol mila, and virtually all things are included.
Sure.
So it's very similar. He's basically more saying product cloud is very similar to miyat and riboy, right?
Absolutely.
Ma ikabein miyat riboy the product cloud. What then is the difference between understanding the sequence of miyat and riboy and product cloud? There is a difference. The ilu part to cloud. For if we understand the statements in terms of a prat or klal, marbinan afil on the labin, we include in the Nazir prohibition even leaves and shoots. Umiyat veribe, but if we understand the Torah is limited and amplified, ulavin ain alin light. By a prat or klal, where it comes to include everything,
It's going to generalize even more.
It's going to generalize even more, and we're going to include leaves and shoots. What do we actually exclude? Probably the woody stuff, the woody branches.
Yeah.
But we include much more in a case of prat uklal. But umiyat riboy, which is more restrictive, that's the difference. Miyat and riboy is more restrictive than lulavin in the shoots.
I would say it's more specific. It's one miyat. It's actually, there's only one
Oh,
thing
not
that's-
restrictive, right. Then it's more specific.
More specific.
Lulavin are included in the prohibition. The shoots, lulav, the word lulav, huh? All in light, but leaves are not included. So the miyat riboy gives things more room to breathe, and we would actually not include leaves. The guy can floss his teeth with the leaves. Ending right there.